physics as the anatomy of God. I hereby assert to the restitution of this refute. I hereby prove the existence of God. As it is, the beginning of this God problem, hereby stated as the God equation, is the rationalization of a force of which governs our creation, among other things. This can be asserted as physics, as physics is the measurement of natural forces within a dimensional constraint. God theory is of one particle that's split. The reaction between the first and the second creates a third, hereby outlined as the tertiary. Much the same way, a negative side on a magnet attracts a positive side on another. The conjectural force between these 2 points, although not entirely physical, is the presence of a third particle. The third particle, or the space between, became a point of zero when these 2 particles, the first and the second, came into contact. The result of this contact is the approximate start of an all. As particles begin to overlap, collapse, combine, interchange, and nullify each other, the condensing particles began to become masses of which were governed by a third force of constancy referred to as gravity. This gravity and the gravity of other charged particles caused strange rotations, installations, fossilizations, obliterations, and contradictions. The greatest rational particle is a center, positive attracting a smaller body of negative. Minimal neutrality would occur while the overall charge remains unchanged. I thoroughly believe that physics is the definite anatomical structure of some sort of larger force mechanism. It is the only explanation a person has told me that only proved raptor Jesus existed. Well, raptor Jesus was an allegorical joke created by an ingenious and populated by people who barely understand its point. Where would we be? What would we even be if we would be at all if dinosaurs did not exist at one point? Prove nothing. So in other words, you are just saying anything can be God. So if this is right, that I am God. No, that's not right. Unless you're a Satanist or you thrive on making piles of germs. But to a point, yes. But only to lower life and so forth would only be because of the collective. If it were not for the collective, then you would not have clothing, you would not have shelter, and much like the dinosaurs, if the collective did not exist and collaborations did not occur, would you exist? Would you exist if pants were not created? Would you exist if they were not turned into a machine process? What about gloves? Or glass? Would you exist? The anatomy of God is not logical. It's an unfounded assumption. I find it to be a well-founded rational theory. It is plausible. Because it is possible. If you're looking for a definitive, is there a God? I suppose that would be it. Since a God can be anything that you have no control over, then I suppose many things can be. Well, I've said, how could God be a bunch of calculations? As far as I know, most calculations prove God dead wrong. Well, that's interesting, because you have to take into account the people who made these calculations, these graphic representations of these forces, and then the forces themselves. What are these forces? If the humans are trying to define them in a way that is audible, something that can be easily explained, symbolic, something that can be easily represented, and stratified, something that can easily put into a structured table of dynamics, what are you displaying? What are you doing? How does that disprove God? If there is an almighty one, and God doesn't exist, would that mean that God is dead? Wouldn't that mean that God is dead? And that everything is because God died? That doesn't make any sense to me. Suppose they would have got us something a little more, for something as profound as to say, proven, God exists and I can prove it, and we've got a physics. I would have thought I could have got some other responses. If they're very superficial and they have no proof, then nothing but an opinion. And opinions, as far as they go, is I say because you said. It's the bistable thing. If one side agrees, then one side has to disagree, because there is no agreement if there's not a disagreement, because then there's just nothing. And if there's neutrality in the subject, then it's just a subject. But you could be a subject of a structure and subject the subject to agreement or disagreement, at which point a vote could be held, and then based on opinion you can come to some sort of assertion of whether or not it is fact or not. But as far as trying to find an opinion of that, I think it's best if someone uses their own personal beliefs, ideas, maybe their own brain. That's too bad. That's a damn waste, if you ask me. Well, I suppose it's trivial, but am I wasting my time or are they wasting theirs? Are you normal, or is everything you care about a lie? Normality is governed by equilibrium in the state of two equal bodies. If two equal bodies are not present, or the presence of several bodies are affirmed, normality is then achieved by means of deviation. This deviation is extrapolated through observing the similarities and differences. A ratio is then derived and observed. If normality does not exist, it becomes an imaginary fixed point. If you fancy yourself different, you're the same as everyone else. Who believes they are unique? Everyone.
Are you acceptant, or do you seek to understand?